Are fintech companies really an alternative to old school banks? In this video, we're going to see if digital solutions can truly replace traditional banking. Hi, my name is Rusudan. I have been working with Nomad Capitalist for the last 4 years, helping high net worth individuals legally reduce their taxes, get second citizenships, and go where they are treated best. In this video, we're going to discuss fintech companies and the solutions that they may provide for businesses. We've seen in the comments, we've seen our clients come to us and ask if a fintech bank or fintech company can provide them with the solutions and can be a good fit for them. And I think that in the recent years, it has been a very big debate whether you should go with a traditional banking or whether you should go with the fintech. The biggest takeaway is that we see fintech industry and fintech banks growing a lot. It's a very flexible environment there for them, and they are providing new solutions to their customers and expanding what they can do and their features. So I do think that it is something that anybody should consider, be that on the personal front or business side of their banking. And the biggest opportunity is that it gives you more diversification, it gives you more opportunity. But when it comes to more opportunity, you need more information to make a decision which works best for you. Is it a fintech or is it old school traditional banking? So we're going to cover a couple of aspects. The first part, we're going to talk about fintech solutions and what kind of advantages you can see, what's something that only they can provide. And then of course we're going to cover some maybe drawbacks to banking with fintech companies. And at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you in which scenario it's best to go with fintech and in which scenario it's best to go for traditional banking. Let's dive in. So the first thing is, why do we think that fintech is our solution? There are a few aspects that they cover, I would say, better than old school banks. And the first thing, that they have lower fees and maybe exchange rates are better with them. And I think that it's very reasonable because they are trying to kind of get more business, and they have to be competitive with the old school banking and their reputation. And I think that that's where they are trying to kind of be better than traditional banks. So if you're going with fintech company, it's highly likely that they are going to have lower fees than traditional banks, and the exchange rates they are going to offer are going to be better than the traditional banks. For example, if you are talking about, Wise or Revolut, they have maybe better fees and exchange rates than some traditional banks. The other benefit of fintech companies is that they are more convenient and user-friendly. So they have mobile apps. While with traditional banks, of course, most of pretty much all of the traditional banks, they offer mobile banking and everything, but they still have some need to provide you, you need to provide them with some documents or something. And while with fintech, it's mostly you can assign things electronically, you approve things online, so it's really easy, user-friendly, easy for you to use. One other additional benefit is that it's accessible for more small businesses, small and medium-sized businesses, while with the traditional banking, you may need to have a certain amount, a minimum deposit, or maybe certain history with the business, or other bank account that you have to show. But if you're just starting, or a small medium-sized business, then you don't necessarily have all this history. So where do you start? And maybe fintech could be a very good way to start your banking history for a business, because it's not a priority for them to see that you have a bank account somewhere else, or that you have a certain minimum deposit that you can provide. So I think that it's more accessible for small and medium-sized businesses than some of the traditional banks that you would think about. One other benefit of having a fintech account is that they offer multi-currency accounts, and that gives you diversification from the currency side, and also the exchange fees are, as we said, less. So it gives you more access to more currencies, and I think that traditional banking may be a bit more limited in that case, or maybe even like they can offer you bank accounts in different currencies, but again, setting them up may take a bit more paperwork and time, while with fintech you just with your online app just add different currencies, so it's like really doesn't take you a lot. Now that we've discussed the benefits of getting a fintech account, there are certainly some drawbacks, and especially when you compare it to like traditional banking. First thing is the security and stability. So when you're talking about banking, of course you expect a certain level of security. You don't want to be really thinking about like if I have X amount in my bank, like what's going to happen with if something happens with the bank, like do I have any concerns or risks of not getting my money back? And maybe when you're talking about like fintech, it's more likely with them than you would expect with an old school traditional bank, because with old school traditional banks they have a different level of compliance. They are like more governed by a specific government body or national bank or like different institution in different countries, and while with fintech companies they are not that governed, so they don't necessarily maybe have their funds insured somewhere or something like that. So definitely when you're choosing a fintech bank account, it definitely gives you kind of more of a risk that you need to be aware of, and maybe like in specific cases it's like not a huge risk, so it makes sense to still go for it, but just have that kind of covered in some other way. The other drawback is old school banks. They have the customer service is more like personal. They probably have an operator or even a banker, or like if you call them there's a person replying to you. But what I've seen mostly with fintech, it's like sometimes it's a person, but in most cases it's like a bot or something, and it's kind of difficult to communicate, and not everybody is up for that kind of like, you know, just chatting with somebody over the support chat, or choose from the options that they have for them to direct you. And sometimes it can be a headache. Sometimes you just want to call, talk to a person and get a solution, especially if your case is kind of like a complex and you have to kind of jump through the hoops of getting a person on the other end, and even that can be of a challenge. So I think that I've seen a lot of people, and sometimes I'm like that. I would prefer to call somebody and explain and like, you know, talk to a person, explain and get a solution while I'm on the phone, and I don't necessarily want to send an email and then wait for a few days. So one other drawback that fintech companies have is that they may not be able to process like high value transactions. So if you are planning to have like transactions of a higher amount, or like in volume wise higher, like a lot of transactions, they may have certain limitations, and that is due to like the way that they are established. So they also would like usually they have like corresponding or like intermediary banks, like they are partner banks where they need to work with those banks, and because it's a third party, they are limited to what this partner bank is going to offer, and sometimes those banks do not really want to be dealing with huge funds that are not really their funds, that they are getting from like through the fintech of a third party client. So if you are planning on having a high volume and high amount transactions, then I would consider getting a traditional bank, because maybe fintech will not be enough to give you the solution. The last drawback that I would kind of underline with fintech is that because of like limitations in regulations, it means that they may not be recognized in all the countries and in all the jurisdictions that you can be dealing with. So it means that you may be sending money from your fintech company to a certain country, but that country and that bank does not really consider your fintech bank as a financial institution. So there may be some issues with that. There you may be asked to kind of send it from another bank, or maybe asked to provide additional documents. So this is definitely something that could maybe be a deal breaker for certain countries, because if you're asked to provide additional documents and asked a lot of questions for every transaction to that country, and it is like a core part of your business, then maybe fintech is not a right fit for you. Now in the final part of this video, I'm going to tell you a couple of examples of when fintech may be the best option or traditional banking. So if you plan to have small transactions but in a large volume, then I think that you should go with the fintech. Because, for example, you have like different vendors or employees or contractors or something, and you're paying them frequently, monthly or like even more frequently, but the amounts are not high for each transaction, then I think that fintech is really a very good opportunity and option for you, especially if you have cross-border payments, like if you're paying from one country to another, and especially if you have like different currencies, then I think that fintech definitely is a better solution, because it gives you some like savings on the exchange rates. It can be way faster than the traditional bank, and it can also be cheaper, because like the fees compared to traditional banking, especially for international banks, banking and transactions, I think that fintech is on average providing like way cheaper fees for that. So if this is the case, then you definitely need to go with fintech. Now, on the other hand, if you have like high value transactions, so like maybe one transaction of a huge amount, then I think that fintech may not be the best solution. And I do think that with from like, stability wise, then traditional banking is better, because it also like makes sense. Even if they have higher fees, if it's just for one transaction, it's like it makes more sense to pay the fee and have the security that the bank is gonna, like, whatever, if something happens, your bank is gonna chase down the funds, or it's not gonna be like difficult for you to go through the like, where is my funds now, especially even if it's like an international payment, it goes through a couple of intermediary banks, and maybe fintech will not have that much control, or like will not see where the funds are, but traditional banks, they have like more well-established connections between each other, so it's easier for them to kind of see through the whole transaction and make sure that the funds are received on the other hand, and if there are any issues or additional questions, they kind of are better equipped to provide the support. In that case, for like high-value transactions, I think that the traditional banking would be a good option. Now, the final case that I wanted to kind of discuss with you is what is the best solution to have when you have like different currency transactions, and I would say that it's a combination of both. So because fintech has good exchange rates and also like smaller fees compared to the traditional banking, I've seen a lot of situations where on personal or bank or business side you have like two accounts. One of them is like fintech, and you use them for all the smaller transactions, and then you have a more like traditional bank account where you hold like big chunk of your funds, because it's like less of a risk, and then when you need, you move money to your fintech account just for like monthly expenses or something. So it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. Like you have access to fintech, you have smaller fees, good exchange rates, but you also don't have to think that, oh my God, my huge amount is sitting in the fintech, what's going to happen? Because the majority of your funds is secure with the traditional banking, and you just move the money to the fintech account when and in the amount that you need. So I do think that in this like specific situations, there is a way to make sure that both these types of accounts work for you, and you kind of find where fintech is good for you and where traditional banking is good for you, and you just get both, and you don't really have to make a choice. But if you do have to make a choice, I hope this video helped you decide which bank is going to be a good fit for you. If you do have further questions about banking, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, and we will be happy to assist you. Please like, subscribe and share. My name is Rusudan, and I will see you in the next video.